So even aside from all of the other benefits that you have to a learning management system, which by the way don't need to go away, just because you go back into the classroom, this is a great tool that you can continue to use in a face-to-face or a hybrid version. So outside of the other benefits we talked about, certainly the data is something that I do hope that you can circle back at the end of the semester and take a good look at what you're able to see and what you're able to find out, because that's just a gold mine. Making grading easier with interactive rubrics, making personalized options a little bit simpler. There are lots of benefits to using tools like this, but one of the most substantial really has to do with feedback. And this is something that I think a lot of people are surprised by, because I think that nothing replaces a face-to-face interaction with students. And I think that in a lot of cases, certainly in my experience, that has definitely been true. But what working in learning management systems like Canvas taught me is that really, really works as long as I am not distracted, as long as I have time for it, as long as I am engaged in what is going on, and as long as both parties tend to be extroverted. I had some really, really hard lessons as an online teacher around ways that my extroverted tendency gets in the way of me being able to really teach everybody. I've got a lot of kids who just are not, they're not going to approach me about this stuff. They are just going to suffer in silence for a million different reasons. And, it's funny, we kind of think of students as being able to hide behind a computer. There's no hiding with the data that you have. There's really nowhere to hide as an online student. Everything that you say and do is recorded and can be analyzed and interpreted depending on, your instructor. And so, for good, for better or worse. There are some situations where it hasn't been great, but the feedback that you can offer to all of your students, it can be very, very deep and meaningful, and very useful. And so a lot of the studies that you look at when they compare students' connections to their instructors, there's definitely, they tend to, on average, feel more connected to their face-to-face instructors. But in the circumstances where you have teachers that are very engaging, offer very personalized experiences, and give detailed, meaningful feedback to students, they actually have more connection to their instructors online than they do face to face. And we see that in a number of different areas of education. It was very much a surprising finding. So my point to all that is that you should really, really spend time looking at what your feedback options are. It's something that is very, it's relatively simple to do if you have 20, 25 kids in a second grade classroom. There are plenty of other things that are not simple about being a second grade teacher. But the sheer number of people that you have to catch up with is minimal compared to, I had 130 every single semester. And that's just volume. That's a lot of people that you have to go after all the time. And so this sort of thing, being able to flag students, setting up certain things in the grade book that give you warnings if you are seeing a problem with a student, being able to interpret their usage data and their grade submissions to break it down and figure out who are the students you need to go after, and then who are the students that you need to give a lot of encouragement to because they're doing great things and they don't always hear that they're doing great things. So all of these things are possible because, remember that very early unit where we talked about making time for all this? Because you don't have to print off the quiz every time, and you don't have to grade things by hand, and you don't have to enter it in the grade book. That's all largely done for you. So that makes these sort of things, really possible. So I'm going to use that essay, again, kind of as an example here, because it has the same sort of features that you will find, in a lot of different places. And I'm just going to go into SpeedGrader with a fake submission so that you can kind of see what this might look like. And there, again, nothing is solidly recommended to you. It's just what is going to make sense for you and for your students and what's going to get them to the level where you want them to be at. Okay. So this is just, an example essay that I found online. And what I had students do here is so since most of your students are on Google Drive and that's where they keep everything, they can certainly just link up the document, into Canvas, and it'll take you to the link, you'll go external, you'll comment on it, you'll come back here, you'll grade it. Again, the more you go out of the system, the more the data is spread out, it's all in different locations. So what I do is I ask the students if they're creating things in Google Drive, because first of all, they don't always give me permission for that. So there's a little bit of a roundabout. It's a good stalling tactic. Actually, students are very good at that. They might set some settings. I don't know how it works in Afton, but I've seen this in a few other places. Well, they'll accidentally set, a privacy setting. It buys them a little more time, to work on some things. So even if you can like see the revision history, there are some sneaky ways around it. So the way that I get around that and I offer more detailed feedback is to have them actually, if they're working in Drive, when you're done, download it into a .docx file, into a Microsoft Word file, and then go into Canvas and upload that document. Now, it's a static document then. It's not a live document, so they can't go in and make all of these changes, which can be a downside to it. But what happens on the upside is that when they download it, first of all, it's all in Canvas. You don't have to go back and forth and back and forth, and they don't have to look in multiple places to find out how they did about something. But here I can, also provide, different commentary, like that's awesome, or, not really sure about this part. You can do strike throughs, you can do all sorts of things. And the students then can actually download this file with all of the comments listed in it. They can, and some of them need to, they just want to print it out and they want to, scratch all over it, rewrite it, and then do it over. You can do some of this certainly in Google Drive again, but again, the comments are in one part and the grade is in something else. So if you can keep it all in one spot, that just kind of makes it easier. So again, when you go into the rubric, you can, provide, broad comments here, like, for accuracy. Again, if you have you have 5 here, you have, let's say, just 9 for this one. So if I'm going back over here, I've got analysis, and I might say, that's terrible, was weak in blah, 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 blah. You can say kind of whatever you want to say. And then you can provide, more detail, and that's really kind of what that looks like. So then students can see not only the description in the rubric, but also what your comments were on. Also, if you're finding the same thing happening over and over again, number one, it tells you, again, there's a problem with your design. If you're seeing the same commentary, that means your rubric probably needs a little more detail or needs some more information. But what you can do is click this little save this comment for reuse. And then the next time you go into the next students, you will see this drop down. And this one says missing blah, blah. So if you're noticing that, you don't even have to retype stuff from student to student. It will just let you do it, automatically. Again, usually a sign that there's something wrong with the assignment. So, bear that in mind. But to get you through that particular grading set, it gives you that option. Okay, so then you can save your option, and then you can actually go in below, and if you go down to assignment comments, and I don't know, my picture-in-picture I think is maybe in the way here. Let me see. Oh, I can't move it. Yeah, good. All right, so if you go down to assignment comments, then as you're saving your document, you can actually hit this record button. And I can do video and audio explanation. So I can say, hey, I really, really loved your paper. I thought this was amazing. I thought this was incredible. I think that maybe you need to work on this part though, because this could use a little bit of tweaking, blah, blah, blah. You can provide all of that video commentary, and you could go on forever. Be aware that, that would get annoying for students. But can you imagine that kind of face-to-face interaction and make it when I go back and look at my usage, they go back and look at it over and over and over again to make sure that they get it right and to be sure that they're doing what they are supposed to do, kind of going forward. So that is definitely a great option when it comes to certainly grading things like papers. Let's see what else. The only other thing I wanted to point out was the greatest hits piece of this. And I will say with video and audio, you can do that with any assignment, any discussion board, any quiz, anything. The text box editor is the same across the board. So definitely take advantage of those tools, especially for students that you think or you sense are really struggling and need more detail and more information. That's where it's really helpful. The last thing I would point out is, remember at the beginning I talked about having a podcast week to week. It just helps orient them, it helps anchor them so that they know where they're going. If you have, slated times where you're meeting up, that's probably less necessary. But if there's a gap between one class and the next class where that sort of thing would be helpful, it's very useful. The other reason why it's useful is number one, it keeps me up with the content every single week. You guys aren't going to have that problem right now. Like you're in it, you're in the middle of it. But after you've done it for a while, you have to kind of, you may find if you've taught something for a while, you have to go back and kind of go back through your stuff and get a little bit of a refresher because you've done it so long that you may forget, some of the nuances. So the nice thing about having the week to week podcast is I just record that, at the beginning of every week. So I'm fresh on what's going on. It's how I catch any errors in my content when I'm trying to explain it to people and I'm going through and I can't because there's something missing or there's a problem. That helps me correct my errors before, all of the students are asking me a million questions. But finally, it really gives me an opportunity to cheer on students. So if I had students making fantastic comments in a discussion board and I want to point out some of them, I may say, hey, remember we had that discussion last week? Well, when Jacob said this or when Markup said that, it was amazing. I thought it was incredible. I love the way you guys did this. Even sometimes if there's a private assignment and I had a student do something absolutely incredible, and you may have felt this before, when you have students who are not like they're very quiet, they're very shy, and they turned in something absolutely phenomenal. I'll always ask them if they're okay, with me because it was an assignment that just they submitted. But are you okay with me, pointing this out? Because I absolutely will do it. So I'll get on that podcast and say, and we had this essay last week, and this person picked this influencer. It's something I never would have thought of, but it was a great connection. It was really exciting. And if you want to ask, so and so about that submission, I'm sure they'd love to kind of clue you in on how they did that or the resources that they found or, things like that. It makes students feel so good when they're recognized in class. And that is no different online than it is face to face. It's exactly the same. So, and then this way, again, they can go back and they can listen to it over and over again when they're feeling kind of cruddy. So all of these things are ways that you can really, deeply connect with students. You can set rules up in your grade center and in your notifications so that as students who are struggling or students that, a lot of students that are right in the middle and don't get a whole lot of attention, you can have settings where if you notice that within a certain category they've jumped up 10% since the last time that you checked, that means you told them you need to get going on your homework and they're doing it. That's a chance for you to immediately email them from that messaging center and say, message them and mom and dad, hey, I just saw that you jumped up in this category. We had that talk. I'm so glad that you're doing it. Keep up the great work. Let me know if you have questions. It makes it easy to see those students and flag those students. And those are all fantastic tools that I just don't have time to go into today. But I do hope that you find all of them because these are really phenomenal ways to connect to students. And I find after years and years and years, I am still able to connect to students that I never even physically met in some circumstances because of tools like this. So definitely use them to your advantage.